Chapter 91. Looking at the credits on the table, Wu Yi's complexion alternated between green and red.
His face was gloomy to the degree of being able to squeeze water out. How is this possible? Ignoring the credibility of the monthly salary of 20,000 credits, just being able to toss down 20,000 credits casually was not normal.
Wu Yi had seen many wealthy tycoons before, and his eyesight had never failed him before.
The clothing that Shi Feng was currently wearing was not even worth 300 credits, so how could Shi Feng possibly have that much money?
Moreover, when he took it out, it was just so simple. He even casually threw it onto the table.
This series of actions were not habits of an average person, and they were impossible fake.
Only those tycoons that paid no heed to credits would carry the action out in such a relaxed and comfortable manner. What Wu Yi did not know was that Shi Feng was once the guild leader of Shadow. Throwing money away like dirt was just a small matter to him.
He even spent tens of millions of credits to poach a few master-level lifestyle players. During those times, he had thrown stack after stack of credits onto the table, causing those lifestyle players to worship him immediately.
Throwing out just 20,000 credits was not even a warm-up for him. Humph!
Just this amount of money is nothing. As long as you have the strength to join the upper echelons of Shadow, a monthly salary of 50,000 to 60,000 credits is just a small matter.
Moreover, we have the support of young Master Lan, so our funds are extremely abundant. Furthermore, the celebrities of our school have also joined Shadow. The 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 9th ranked students in the university's most recent fighting competition have all joined Shadow. These people are the true experts, and they could easily rise to fame in God's domain. Meanwhile, what kind of true experts does your workshop have? Wu Yi pretended to be calm as he coldly snorted.
However, he still could not help himself to steal a glance at the 20,000 credits thrown on the table.
The basic wage for an official member of Shadow was just 3,000 to 5,000 credits. Although it was slightly better than the salary of many university fresh graduates, there was still a limit. Such an amount was not enough for one to act carelessly. Wu Yi, we will deal with the matters of Zero Wing by ourselves. It is still not up to you to comment on our problems.
If your boss wishes to annex our workshop, first offer up a monthly salary of 100,000 or above. Let me be Shadow's vice leader, and Brother Feng the guild leader. Otherwise, please return. Blackie was extremely irritated after hearing Wu Yi speak. He abruptly stood up and pointed towards the dormitory's entrance as he looked at Wu Yi with a disdainful smile. Blackie's performance was extremely arrogant and incomparably rampant.
He held no regard for Shadow at all. Was it amazing to have many members? Did being an expert in a fighting competition mean they could play well in God's domain? If one had the ability, then they could hitch up a relationship with those first-rate guilds. See if they pay any attention. Blackie, you better not regret this in the future.
Shadow is fated to become a giant in Jinhai City.
When that time comes, don't even think about joining Shadow. Wu Yi left after speaking.
He was determined to tell Brother Zhang and young Master Lan about everything that had happened here, letting them take care of the ignorant Shi Feng and Blackie.
Thanks for your worries, but I never eat the medicine of regret when I do something. Although Shadow is amazing, unfortunately, it isn't enough to enter my eyes.
Blackie loudly declared, and almost everyone in the entire building could hear him speak.
Blackie's dorm mates were all stunned. When did Blackie become so awesome?
He actually dared to let out such bombastic words, publicly rejecting the invitation of Shadow Workshop that's famous throughout the whole university.
How many people dreamed of the job he rejected? After Wu Yi left, Blackie instantly lost his previous heroism.
His bum immediately landed in a chair, his heart silently lamenting that it was all over. Because of his momentary rampant emotions, he became hot-headed and made enemies out of Shadow.
Wasn't this just making trouble for Zero Wing? On the other hand, Shi Feng was extremely touched. As expected, Blackie was still the same in both his previous and current lives.
In Shi Feng's previous life, Blackie had immediately resigned from his position without hesitation and followed Shi Feng.
Now, this was a true brother.
In Shi Feng's previous life, the countless people around him could only share the gains but not the pains.
Shi Feng also knew what Blackie was currently worried about, so he clapped his hands and said in agreement, "Well said."
In the struggles of the virtual gaming world, winning or losing can be changed in the blink of an eye. There are no such things as eternal winners. As long as we work hard enough, sooner or later, we will definitely surpass Shadow. As long as Zero Wing Workshop developed, they were bound to come into conflict with Shadow. If Shadow wished to spare no expense to deal with them, then they could just use Shadow's reputation to spread Zero Wing's fame throughout the university campus. That way, Shi Feng would not have to waste efforts to publicize his guild.
Let's go. We'll go out and take a walk and buy an advanced helmet on the way. Always staying in your dormitory won't be good for your body. Shi Feng left the room, letting Blackie tidy himself up. Blackie was constantly holed up in his dorm room these days. He was even playing God's Domain during the daytime, not doing any other activities. Although it wouldn't be a problem in the short term, after a while, the damage to his body would become very significant. "Brother Feng, wait for a moment. I'll come immediately."
Blackie immediately collected all the credits on the table, then tidied himself before leaving the dormitory with Shi Feng.
Only his dumbfounded dorm mates remained in the room.
They all looked at each other, their faces revealing bitter smiles.
Normally, they had, many times, made fun of Blackie. Never would they have thought that Blackie was hiding his true appearance. He even managed to gain the favor of a tycoon.
This won't do.
I will also apply for a trial gaming helmet. I've decided. I'll become a professional gamer in God's Domain. When Shi Feng had walked out of the dormitory, Blackie quietly stuffed the 20,000 credits into Shi Feng's pocket. "Brother Feng, you really gave me a shock today. However, the way you threw out the money was just too cool. I felt awesome just seeing Wu Yi's expression. But, you better keep this money properly.
Don't simply throw it around next time," Blackie said excitedly. "What are you trying to do?"
Shi Feng slightly wrinkled his brows. He then gave the money back to Blackie. He had never been putting up an act. From the beginning, he intended to give Blackie the money. He knew that Blackie's family situation was not that good either. With this money, he would be able to alleviate a lot of his family's burden. "I've already said that your basic salary every month would be 20,000 credits. Did you think I was just joking with Wu Yi?
Just take this money as your salary in advance."
Looking at the 20,000 credits in his hands, Blackie's mouth widened, staring blankly at the money.
Originally, even if Shi Feng's previous words were but a joke, they were enough to make him feel happy. However, looking at Shi Feng's expression, he knew that Shi Feng was not joking.
Shi Feng had truly intended to give him a monthly salary of 20,000 credits. Moreover, Shi Feng intended to give him the money that he was currently holding.
However, where did all this money come from? Blackie was extremely clear about Shi Feng's condition. Being able to borrow 20,000 credits was already a difficult feat. Now, Shi Feng was even giving all of it to him.
This was just insane.
"Brother Feng, if you give away this money, what will you do about the workshop?"
Moreover, the deadline for the trial gaming helmets is almost up.
"You are bound to have to buy the official gaming helmet, right? Won't this money be just the right amount to buy it?"
In any case, I'm currently not in need of money. Blackie pushed the credits back to Shi Feng again. It would be a lie if he were to say that the 20,000 credits didn't attract him. However, he couldn't just ignore his brother's situation just because of some money. Shi Feng could naturally discern Blackie's worries. He clapped Blackie's shoulders and couldn't help but reveal a smile. His bank account currently held over 100,000 credits, and most likely, during this period, it had risen to over 200,000 credits. In another 10 days or so, he would earn even more money.
"You don't have to worry about this.
You also don't have to worry about the matter of the gaming helmets.
Haven't I said it already?
Leave the matters regarding money to me.
Shi Feng possessed the memories of his previous life.
He was also the guild leader of Shadow. All beginnings had with hardships. Although earning the initial fundings was extremely difficult, as long as he obtained them, the following matters would become much easier to deal with.
If he did not even possess the method of making money with money, then how would he have been able to turn Shadow into a second-rate guild?
Brother Feng, you couldn't have possibly.
Seeing that Shi Feng was so confident, Blackie's first feelings were not excitement or happiness. Instead, he was trembling. He worried that Shi Feng might have done something bad, such as being *** by a rich woman to obtain this money. Compared to borrowing the money, this was a much more horrifying scenario. What are you blindly thinking about? Don't forget about the matter of cooperation we have with Gentle Snow. This is just the compensation she has given.
Now, we no longer have to stay poor and blank. We already have some funds, so relax. Shi Feng rolled his eyes at Blackie.
This fellow's thinking was just too slanted.
Shi Feng did not reveal the real truth. Otherwise, it would be extremely hard for him to explain. So, he simply pushed everything onto Gentle Snow. In any case, Gentle Snow was the great goddess that everybody knew. When Blackie heard Shi Feng, sudden realization struck him. He sent Shi Feng a gaze filled with worship. Being able to gain the favor of the snow goddess was the dream of every man. It was as expected of Brother Feng.
His methods were just too awesome.
Chapter 92. Inside a finely decorated office, a robust man with thick eyebrows sat in an office chair as his fingers tapped on the desk. In his other hand, he was flipping through a thick stack of resumes. Dang! Dang! Dang!
Enter, the man with the thick eyebrows said in a deep tone. Brother Zhang, I've done the thing that you asked of me.
Wu Yi gently opened the door and carefully entered. He then stood, panicked, in front of the desk. Although it was not his first time meeting Shadow's person in power, Zhang Luowei, he still felt an intense pressure every time they met. He was always scared and on edge whenever he spoke with this person. In Shadow Workshop, aside from Lan Hailong, Zhang Luowei's authority was the highest. Moreover, Zhang Luowei was the champion of Jinhai University's fighting competition. He was also one of the hot contenders for becoming the champion of Jinhai City's fighting competition. Even Lan Hailong was respectful before this person, as one of the main reasons why Shadow became so popular within the university was due to Zhang Luowei's personal fame.
Sit. Tell me about it. Zhang Luowei placed the resumes to a side, his finger pointing towards the leathered sofa in front of his desk. Although Zhang Luowei looked like an amiable person, Wu Yi knew that, below that appearance, there was an abyss-like horror. Zhang Luowei's personality was both vicious and merciless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to suppress fighting experts like Zhou Yuhu and others. After some thought, Wu Yi slightly organized his words before saying, Brother Zhang, the others have already agreed. It is only that Blackie that is a stone inside a latrine pit, both smelly and hard. He wouldn't agree, no matter what, and he had joined a newly established workshop called Zero Wing. He even said that it was beneath him to join a trash workshop like Shadow. Not willing to join, is it? He's even joined Zero Wing Workshop? Zhang Luowei displayed contemplation as he smiled. However, inside his eyes, a cold glint flashed. What is the origin of this Zero Wing Workshop? Why haven't I heard of it before? Brother Zhang, Zero Wing Workshop was established by a Year 4 student named Shi Feng. I heard that this workshop has nothing at all. They are also buying their gaming facilities only today. However, that person is quite rich. He offered Blackie a basic monthly salary of 20,000 credits. He even wanted me to bring back word to Brother Zhang, telling you to stop trying to poach members of other workshops and take care of your own land. Wu Yi was very angry while he spoke. When I heard this, even I couldn't bear to stomach it. They are just a greenhorn workshop, yet they dare to challenge Shadow. Brother Zhang, how about I take some men to extinguish their overwhelming attitude? Shi Feng, is it?
I seem to have heard this name before. Zhang Luowei wrinkled his brows slightly, trying to figure out where he heard this name.
However, after thinking for some time, he still could not recall.
He shook his head, saying, "Don't bother with them. In a few days, the school will be holding the annual fellowship party.
This is a great chance for Shadow to have a meteoric rise, so we don't have the time to waste on these little workshops."
Right, you organize the newly recruited members and have them quickly level up.
The guilds in White River City will be starting the competition over the honor of getting the first clear for the 20-man dungeon very soon.
We also have to fight for the fame obtaining the first clear of a level 5 dungeon. Yes. You can rest assured, Brother Zhang. I will help them quickly rise to level 5. Wu Yi clapped his chest, assuring. Elsewhere, Shi Feng brought Blackie along to purchase 2 advanced virtual gaming helmets.
Although the current virtual reality technology was very advanced, the basic helmet was a cheaply made in consideration of the general masses.
Its degree of synchronization was just 80%.
However, the advanced version of the helmet could reach up to 90% synchronization, and the user's 5 senses would become much more sensitive.
Although the difference did not seem too great, during a battle between equal strengths, this small difference would be the determining factor of victory or defeat. The battles in God's domain were always life or death battles. Moreover, the penalty of a single death was a great amount of express and skill proficiency.
Hence, most large-scale workshops would allocate an advanced virtual gaming helmet to all their official members.
Previously, Shi Feng did not have the money to purchase even a basic gaming helmet. Now that he had the money, however, he naturally would not fall behind in this aspect.
After purchasing the advanced gaming helmets, Shi Feng found a good restaurant and ordered some high-class nutrition meals.
He ate with Blackie as they talked about the future development of their workshop.
Such a situation made Blackie feel like he was in a dream. God's domain had only been running for slightly more than 3 days. Not only had Shi Feng solved the problem of the gaming helmets, but Shi Feng also brought him to a high-class restaurant for a meal and discussion of the matters of developing their workshop. The more unbelievable thing was that Shi Feng unhesitatingly gave him a salary of 20,000 credits.
Just how many university students' dream was it to have a monthly salary of 20,000 credits? On the other hand, he hadn't even helped Shi Feng out much, yet, he was able to obtain such a salary. Although Blackie did not voice it, inwardly, he was extremely moved.
He felt extremely apologetic to Shi Feng, so he silently swore that he would work hard to be of help to Shi Feng.
Shi Feng and Blackie conversed for a long time. They properly discussed the matters regarding the future development of their workshop.
They also prepared to officially recruit Lonely Snow and the others, establishing a real workshop. The remaining matters were to find a location to set up their workshop, purchasing facilities for the workshop, and the workshop's administration.
Brother Feng, leave these to me since I'm usually doing nothing during the day. It is already hard on you just to level up and earn money. Anyway, I am an economy and management major, so it is a great chance for me to display my specialty. I guarantee that you will be satisfied, Blackie assured.
He couldn't help but want to start his work immediately.
Good.
Then I'll leave it to you, Shi Feng smiled. He felt extremely relieved with Blackie managing things. After the two parted, Shi Feng sent a message to his parents. He then sent them 3,000 credits, telling them not to send him living expenses any longer.
He told them that he had already found a good job, and that he was able to support himself financially. Shi Feng was still not ready to tell his parents about everything.
If he were to tell them that he had earned over 200,000 credits in just a few days, they would most likely not accept it.
So, he might as well take it slow, gradually increasing the money he sent them.
That way, His old folks would be able to gradually accept it, thinking it reasonable and fair. At 7 o'clock in the evening, after having his meal, Shi Feng drank a bottle of C-rank nutrient fluid. He put on the newly bought advanced virtual gaming helmet, starting his conquest in God's domain.
Upon entering God's domain this time, the sensation Shi Feng felt when he stood beside the large pool was completely different.
The cool breeze blowing.
The sounds water flowing into the pool. The scratches and rust that were clearly visible on the steel walls.
The faint smell of machine oil.
Even the feeling of manipulating his own body had become much more relaxed.
Shi Feng flexed his body on the stairway. He then pulled out his swords, slashing out streak after streak of beautiful sword images.
The sword images kept flickering in and out of existence, giving an unpredictable feeling.
The feeling I had while playing God's domain in the previous life is finally back. Shi Feng stopped waving his swords, extremely pleased with his current condition.
In his previous life, Shi Feng was used to using the virtual reality cabin. The virtual reality cabin's synchronizing rate could reach up to 97%.
In God's domain, if the system interface, status indicators and other such things weren't present, players would be practically unable to differentiate between the real world and the virtual world. After getting used to his body, Shi Feng felt that he should start searching for the Titan's heart.
Chapter 93. The spiral staircase led directly to the core control area on the highest floor. After climbing an unknown number of steps, Shi Feng arrived at a winding corridor that led towards the core area. Ancient magical runes were carved into the walls on both sides of the corridor, and even though almost a millennium had passed, this corridor was still gleaming with light. Only some parts of the corridor had decayed, damaging the magical circuits etched in it and plunging those particular areas into darkness. Fortunately, not many parts of the corridor were badly decayed, so Shi Feng was still able to clearly see the entirety of the long, narrow, and maze-like corridor. Just after Shi Feng set foot into the corridor, the alarm once again rang out. Alert! Alert!
The intruder has already invaded Area A of the fortress, the magic corridor. Activating guardian statues on duty. Shi Feng then heard loud booming noises coming from the corridor, as if some gigantic machine had started moving.
Shi Feng no longer dared advance slowly. He immediately used a speed scroll, dashing through the magic corridor at flying speed.
After taking several turns in the magic corridor, Shi Feng discovered a machine that had a flashing red light.
Although this machine was just the size of a football, it was constantly producing alarms, as if it were a tool meant for guiding the guardian statues. Sentinel Guard, Common Monster. Level 10. HP 200/200. Shi Feng immediately understood how he was so easily discovered.
This Sentinel Guard was just like a radar. It could detect enemies within a range of 500 yards, and after discovering them, it would set off an alarm. The distance between the entrance of the corridor and this location was roughly around 500 yards, so the Sentinel Guard was able to immediately discover Shi Feng. As long as Shi Feng could get rid of it, then he would be able to rid himself of the alarms of this area. However, this thing had very sensitive reactions.
It would not let any enemies get within 30 yards.
Also, if it were attacked even once, it would try to retreat with all its might. Simultaneously, it would increase its speed of calling for its allies, and it would absolutely not give the enemy a second chance to attack.
It was extremely hard to deal with. I guess I've no choice left. I can only give it a try.
Shi Feng unsheathed both of his swords.
He could already hear the angry roars of the guardian statues coming from behind him.
Based on his strength, fighting in this narrow area would only lead to his own death. His only chance of throwing off those guardian statues was to get rid of this Sentinel Guard. When Shi Feng was nearing the 30-yard range, just as the Sentinel Guard was about to break into a run, Shi Feng's eyes locked onto the Sentinel Guard, the muscles in both of his arms bulged, and with the strength of his entire body, he cast out both swords.
Shoo!
Both swords flew towards the sentinel guard. Precision throw. The throwing distance of the skill was just at 30 yards, and it caused 150% of his weapon's damage. The sentinel guard was extremely vigilant. It rapidly moved its body, immediately dodging the crimson blade that flew at it. However, the sentinel guard's dodge had, in turn, placed it in the flight path of Shi Feng's second sword, the abyssal blade.
Pung!
The abyssal blade pierced through the sentinel guard, causing -211 damage and instantly killing it.
System. Level 10 Sentinel Guard killed. Level difference of 4.
Express obtained increased by 400%.
Obtained 800 Express.
Shi Feng activated Windwalk, his speed once again increasing by a notch as he rushed to pull out his swords that pierced into the ground.
He then rushed towards the magic corridor's exit. Without the guidance of the Sentinel Guard, the guardian statues were like flies that lost their eyes. They ran around all over the place, completely unable to find Shi Feng. More than a dozen minutes later, after getting rid of another 3 Sentinel Guards, Shi Feng finally escaped the magic corridor, arriving at the control room. There was a barrier in the central region of the control room. A dark gray-colored sphere of iron was placed inside the barrier. This sphere of iron was the heart of the steel fortress, and it was the fortress source of energy. It was the Titan's heart. I never thought that, after so many years have passed, there would still be somebody who would come to this place. Before Shi Feng could examine the entire control room in detail, he heard a deep sneer coming from the entrance of the barrier. This sound was bone-chilling, and no human was capable of producing such a sound. Only a puppet or a corpse would be capable of sounding so emotionless. Welcome to my steel fortress Baruya. In order to celebrate your arrival, I've decided to use your fiery flesh and blood to feed my baby. Come out, Hellhound. Shi Feng could faintly see the outline of a humanoid life form inside the barrier. However, the figure seemed to be currently absorbing the energy of the Titan's heart, so it did not have surplus powers to deal with Shi Feng, sending out its pet in its stead. Oh! 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 A large black dog, its entire body covered in flames, rushed out from the barrier. Hellhound, elite rank. Level 15. HP 6000. Crap, did I come at a bad time? Shi Feng's brows slightly wrinkled as he observed the Hellhound. According to the information in his previous life, there were definitely no lifeforms or monsters in this place. The person that did the quest was able to safely take the Titan's heart away. So, why was it that, when it was his turn to do the quest, a mysterious character appeared here, trying to steal the Titan's heart's energy? However, Shi Feng also thought of another possibility. This mysterious character stole all the energy of the Titan's heart first. Meanwhile, the player who came here had merely taken away the Titan's heart that was empty of any energy. On the other hand, Shi Feng had coincidentally run into this energy thief. However, unfortunately for Shi Feng, he wasn't even capable of defeating the pet of this mysterious character, not to mention the person itself. Since you want a battle, then come. Shi Feng pulled out his swords, his attention affixed on the slowly approaching Hellhound. As the Hellhound's distance from him continuously shortened, Shi Feng could feel his surroundings become exceptionally hot, causing his mouth to feel parched. Shi Feng thought of taking out a cold beverage to enjoy, but he currently couldn't carelessly move about. He would immediately reveal a weak point as soon as he moved. As a level 15 elite monster, the Hellhound's intelligence was already extremely high. It was the reason why it leisurely walked towards Shi Feng. That was because the Hellhound knew the best time for it to launch an attack. As long as Shi Feng revealed a gap, it would immediately bite at him with all its might, not letting go of Shi Feng until he was completely dead. In the confrontation between the two, after all was said and done, the Hellhound was still the more powerful. So, naturally, it would not simply wait. Its legs immediately pushed against the ground, leaping high into the air and transforming into a ball of fire. It then opened its flaming maw.
Shi Feng rolled to a side, dodging the hellhound's pouncing attack. However, immediately after the hellhound landed, its flaming claws slashed horizontally. Shi Feng had long since prepared for this, so he used both of his swords to parry.
Pung! Although Shi Feng did not receive any damage, his entire body was thrown. The hellhound immediately opened its large mouth, spewing scorching hot flames. The flames wrapped around Shi Feng completely, preventing him from escaping. Shi Feng clenched his teeth. He used Phantom Kill, and at the moment of imminent peril, he swapped positions with his doppelganger in midair. Shi Feng's doppelganger was immediately swallowed by the flames, instantly turning into a pile of ash. Meanwhile, the system notification showed a damage of up to -3000. Even if Shi Feng were to take the hit with his HP full and all of his life shield, 1, activated, he still wouldn't be able to shoulder this attack. Shi Feng clearly felt how powerful the hellhound was. Such damage was definitely not something a level 15 elite monster could dish out. Its strength was greatly increased because of the quest storyline. According to his experience, Shi Feng estimated the hellhound's actual level to be over level 30, and it should be a Lord rank boss. If the pet were already this powerful, then what about its owner? Seeing that the hellhound's flaming claws were about to slap down at him, Shi Feng used Abyssal Bind. Even if the hellhound were any stronger, it would still be restricted for 3 seconds. Following which, Shi Feng rushed into the barrier at the center of the room. Currently, the best option Shi Feng possessed was to snatch the Titan's heart and swiftly depart. However, just after entering the barrier, Shi Feng immediately became shocked upon seeing this mysterious person's true identity. Dark Clown. Shi Feng immediately recognized the identity of this mysterious character. His heart could not help but be surprised. Why is such a bastard here? 1. Life Shield. Effect 2 of the Silvermoon set equipment, mentioned in Chapter 81. Chapter 94. Although Shi Feng was shocked, his feet never stopped moving. His figure turned into an after image as he rushed towards the Titan's heart, located at the center of the barrier. He then used Observing Eyes on the Dark Clown. Unknown? Shi Feng was shocked. Aside from the information showing that the figure was indeed a dark clown, there was nothing else displayed. All of it was just question marks. There were only 2 possibilities for such a situation to occur. The first was that the dark clown was equipping an advanced camouflage item. The other was that its strength was simply too overwhelming, preventing the basic Observing Eyes from identifying it. It was very clearly the latter situation taking place in this case. According to Shi Feng's memories, dark clowns were a group of mysterious lifeforms. They always wore clown clothing with many bells as decorations. They looked human, but were not human. However, neither were they living spirits. Each one of them was extremely powerful. They could simply appear at any location, and they could come and go without leaving behind a single trace. Even if it was the palace of Star Moon Kingdom, they could still easily enter it. However, this was but a small matter. Shi Feng had previously seen a Tier 3 Great Druid NPC die at the hands of the Dark Clowns. Their methods of attacking were simply unforgettable. The attacks were impossible to avoid. Despicable human, you actually dare barge into this place? The Dark Clown had its face wrapped in a black cloth, revealing only its 2 glowing red eyes. Although its enraged expression could not be seen, its tone was extremely agitated. Streak after streak of green-colored energy was currently being absorbed by the Dark Clown. Clearly it was a crucial moment, so it was unable to take action against Shi Feng. This situation gave Shi Feng a chance to prevent this assimilation ceremony, and deal heavy damage to the Dark Clown. Otherwise, when this critical period passed, the Dark Clown, which was capable of killing even a Tier 3 Great Druid, would instantly kill Shi Feng with just a wave of its hand. Cyber, get rid of him for me, the dark clown urged. Shi Feng revealed a faint smile. Seeing the dark clown's anxious appearance, Shi Feng tried even harder to deal some damage against it.
As for the hellhound behind him, it was still restricted by chains.
It was too late, even if it tried to rush over to Shi Feng. Chop! Shi Feng used all of his strength. With the flick of his wrist, a large explosion sounded out. The abyssal blade turned into a streak of black light, piercing directly towards the magic circle that was absorbing energy from the Titan's heart. Dang! Dang! The magic weapon Abyssal Blade, which had been successful in every previous endeavor, was blocked outside of the magic array. It created brilliant white sparks as it collided with the magic array, dealing no damage at all to the absorption magic array. Pitiful human. Did you think a weak little swordsman like you could destroy my magic array? Just give up and become Cyber's food. Who knows, I might even let your soul go. Otherwise, prepare for endless pain after you die, the dark clown threatened. At this moment, the hellhound rushed over. You're just a clown, yet you dare spout nonsense. Did you think I have no ways to deal with you? Shi Feng sneered. He took out a dark, gray-colored magic scroll from his bag. No! You're literally insane. Do you know what you are trying to do? The dark clown abruptly yelled out in shock after seeing this piece of dark, gray-colored magic scroll. It seems you know your stuff. At worst, we'll both die together. Shi Feng did not wish to use this item either. However, he was going to die anyway, so why should he still care? He then unfolded the magic scroll, and his mouth started chanting the activation incantation. This was one of the only 3 Tier 2 magic scrolls that Shi Feng possessed, Obliterating Torrent. It possessed the ability to devour all magic elements, turning them into nothingness. This magic scroll belonged to the peak of Tier 2 magic scrolls. Suddenly, the magic elements in the center of the barrier surged, becoming incomparably violent, following which, it started collapsing without any signs of stopping. The absorption magic array was made up of magic elements, so, naturally, it could not escape its fate as it collapsed and exploded. The entire magic array was similar to frying beans, producing crackling sounds. The magic array loudly exploded, dispersing streak after streak of dazzling shockwaves. Shi Feng immediately activated Defensive Blade, becoming immune to the damage of 6 ranged attacks. He then rushed towards the Titan's heart. However, it was not easy to collect the Titan's heart. Shi Feng either had to deplete all the energy the Titan's heart possessed, or he would need to have the key to remove the barrier. Fortunately, Shi Feng had the key. In the midst of the explosions, Shi Feng unlocked the barrier protecting the Titan's heart, then stored it in his bag. The shockwaves created by the obliterating torrent sent the hellhound flying away, violently slamming it into a wall. The wall then split apart like a spiderweb. Following which, the hellhound heavily landed on the ground, and didn't stand back up. However, the shockwaves of the explosion did no harm to the dark clown, as if they had just passed through its body. The dark clown's body seemed as though it did not exist in this plane of existence. However, the backlash from the magic ceremony failing had caused great damage to it. The dark clown silently glared at Shi Feng, faintly having the intention to take action. Humph! Come if you have the ability. Shi Feng smiled in disdain as he took out another deep blue-colored Tier 2 magic scroll. Shi Feng had already obtained the Titan's heart. Even if he died, a quest item could not be dropped. The dark clown was already extremely weakened as well, and at most, it would only be slightly stronger than him. Shi Feng still had 2 pieces of Tier 2 magic scrolls. At worst, he would perish together with the dark clown. He could still revive after dying, but if the dark clown died, then it would truly be dead. Let's see who's afraid of who. Despicable human, I'll let you off this time. We will meet again sooner or later. It will be your death when that time comes. The Dark Clown gave up the notion of getting rid of Shi Feng after seeing the magic scroll.
It only left behind a ruthless remark as it disappeared from the control room, together with the Hellhound.
Shi Feng silently waited for a moment.
After confirming no movements from his surroundings, he let loose a breath of relief.
However, he did not store away the Tier 2 magic scroll. He truly did not wish to use the Tier 2 magic scroll and perish together with the Dark Clown.
However, based on the Dark Clown's intelligence, it too would make the right choice.
Shi Feng had already obtained the Titan's heart. He took out a return scroll and started chanting. 30 seconds later, Shi Feng turned into a white glow, disappearing from the control room as well.
After Shi Feng disappeared, the Dark Clown appeared once more. The red glow let out from its eyes became even more brilliant now. It clearly did not expect Shi Feng to be so cautious. From beginning to end, Shi Feng had never put away the Tier 2 magic scroll.
Otherwise, it would have had a chance to kill Shi Feng. Wretched human. The method I've spent more than 10 years researching to absorb the energy from the Titan's heart. When I recover, I will definitely make you wish for death, the Dark Clown bellowed. It abruptly waved its hand, and tens of flying blades destroyed the pedestal, which lost the protection of the barrier. On the other side, Shi Feng had already returned to Red Leaf Town. Currently, the amount of players in Red Leaf Town grew even greater. The streets were filled with players selling level 0 to level 2 common equipment and basic skill books. Shi Feng took a look at his bag. It had been some time since gold coins stopped entering his account. He thus decided to go sell some items before going to hand in his quest. The previous forging designs were already sold out. Shi Feng took out another 20 pieces of glimmer chestplate forging designs and placed them at the auction house to be sold in batches. At this time, a communication request came from Gentle Snow. 3 hours from now, meet up in front of Dark Moon Graveyard's entrance. Get your team prepared for it and bring the necessary potions. Our Ouroboros must definitely snatch the first clear of this dungeon this time, so we'll be looking forward to your performance. Gentle Snow's tone was very indifferent, as if she was giving out a command. It was completely different from their meeting just now. Will do. I'll definitely arrive 3 hours from now. However, Shi Feng did not particularly mind it, as that was the snow goddess's regular attitude. He estimated the time, thinking that he should be able to make it. Neither of them traded unnecessary words, immediately disconnecting the call. After that, Shi Feng purchased card sets and hard stones at the auction house. He also bought some materials required to make bronze equipment and mysterious iron equipment. After storing the materials inside the bank, Shi Feng went on to buy some magic scrolls and necessary potions. He then ran towards the White Sand Ruins to turn in his quest. Chapter 95. Blackie, how are things at your place at the moment? What level are you guys at right now? Shi Feng asked. Leveling up in this hidden area is just too awesome. There is still no one coming over here to steal monsters, and everyone is at level 5 right now. Moreover, we obtained a lot of wolf meat and wolf skin, and our bags have long since been filled to the brim. Right now, we're preparing to return to town and clear out our bags a bit, Blackie excitedly said. In this short period of time, they had obtained 4 pieces of level 5 bronze equipment from grinding on forest wolf dens. Amongst them, there was a level 5 bronze staff that allowed Blackie's damage to increase by a lot. Full already? You guys sure are efficient. Shi Feng was slightly shocked. A stack of wolf meat had 100 pieces in it. Previously, Blackie and the others had purchased plenty of big bags. Shi Feng never thought that they would be filled so quickly. How many wolf meat was this? If all of them were to be given to Violet Cloud to be made into advanced cookings, then it would become a huge profit. That's right. You guys pass all of your wolf meat to a female cleric called Violet Cloud. Just give out my name when you meet her. Afterward, you guys rest up a little and buy some HP and MP recovery potions, then wait for me at the trade area. Brother Feng, are we going to go dungeon diving with the snow goddess?
Blackie excitedly asked, after recalling some things.
So properly rest up. You'll have to tense up your nerves after entering the dungeon. Shi Feng nodded his head, disconnecting the call. On the other hand, Blackie had nearly jumped up in excitement. Originally, he had thought Shi Feng would not be bringing them along to the dungeon.
After all, their techniques were not that great.
They would only be making fools of themselves if they were to go.
However, since Shi Feng did not forsake them, what else did they have to say?
Anticipation grew within Blackie. He was fortunate enough to dive a dungeon together with the snow goddess.
So what if he would shame himself?
It would still be an honor when mentioned to others.
Regardless of what others may say, they would be players who had gone dungeon diving with the snow goddess in the same party.
White Sand Ruins, Stonehammer Town.
When the town mayor Blackbeard saw Shi Feng entering, he went forward and greeted Shi Feng in a very welcoming manner. "Brother Yi Feng, you've come. The fruit juice you sold to me the last time was just too good."
It captivated everyone in our little town. "Now, we can't sleep properly if we don't drink a cup before bed every day," Blackbeard joked. "Lord Mayor Blackbeard, is this the Titan's heart that you wanted?" Shi Feng smiled, taking out the Titan's heart as he asked. When Blackbeard saw the gray-colored, metallic sphere, his mouth suddenly opened wide in shock.
This shape, this color, this texture. It was exactly the same as the Titan's heart mentioned in the legends.
Correct, this is the Titan's heart.
It is exactly the same as the one recorded in the ancient records.
I never thought that I would be able to personally see it in my lifetime.
Brother Yi Feng, I truly did not think that you were such a powerful adventurer. For bringing back our Blacksteel Dwarves' glory, I represent all Blacksteel Dwarves in thanking you sincerely. Blackbeard excitedly received the Titan's heart, continuously thanking Shi Feng.
System. Unique quest, Steel Fortress Baruya, completed. Rewarding 1 Blacksteel insignia.
Obtained Blackbeard's recommendation letter. Obtained Advanced Book of Magic.
Rewarding 10,000 express.
Reputation at Blacksteel Town has reached worship.
The large amount of rewards dazzled Shi Feng's eyes.
His level had also risen to 73% of level 6. Such a leveling speed had even exceeded that of those leveling madmen.
Shi Feng did not care much about the amount of express. Instead, the other items were the most important ones. The rewards this time far exceeded Shi Feng's expectations.
A Titan's heart that possessed no energy in it could transform a third-rate guild into a second-rate guild. However, right now the Titan's heart in Shi Feng's hands still possessed a quarter of its energy.
Shi Feng never imagined the rewards to be so good. In his previous life, the player that completed this unique quest did not obtain such a bountiful reward. The player had only obtained a recommendation letter, an intermediate book of magic, and reputation reaching the level of worship. There was absolutely no Blacksteel's insignia. Blacksteel insignia, fine gold rank. Unique equipment. User restriction, Yi Feng.
The Blacksteel insignia is the highest medal of honor amongst the Blacksteel dwarves.
After equipping it, forging success rate increased by 5%. Proficiency has a 10% chance to increase by 1 extra point. When forging, there is a 1% chance to increase the forged item's attributes.
Shi Feng was shocked after looking at the introduction. This Blacksteel insignia was literally a godly tool for forging.
It was several degrees stronger than the forging talent. It was especially true with the 1% chance for an attribute increase.
That meant that, out of 100 items forged, there would be 1 piece that would have its attributes increased. If Shi Feng forged items every day without stop, he would have no problem making 300 to 400 pieces of equipment.
In turn, he would have 3 to 4 pieces of equipment with their attributes raised.
The thing players compared most when playing games was the quality of their equipment.
Even if the attributes on a piece of equipment was only slightly higher, when the attributes of all the other pieces of equipment were accumulated together, the total amount would allow a player to exceed the others by quite a lot. Regardless of whether it was PK or dungeon diving, the player would have a great advantage in both situations. Although Shi Feng did not know how much of an equipment's attributes would be increased, even an increase of a single point would cause an equipment's price to increase by multiple percentages.
If it was a big increase, then the price would increase by several folds. The price of a single piece of equipment could even rival the price of 10 or more pieces. The black steel insignia was an unexpected profit. Shi Feng's main purpose for doing this quest was to obtain the Book of Magic and Recommendation Letter, as both of these items were capable of allowing a guild to rise up.
It was especially true for the Book of Magic. Moreover, the one Shi Feng obtained was even an advanced Book of Magic.
Aside from forging equipment, Shi Feng could also forge other items, such as armor kits, gemstone buckles, alchemy wands, and much more.
Amongst them, armor kits were the most popular and also had the largest demand.
Generally, armor kits were capable of increasing either a chestplate's defense or attributes.
These all depended on the armor kit's quality and level.
Meanwhile, the Book of Magic Shi Feng obtained from Blackbeard was for making the strengthened version of the armor kit, the Mana Armor Kit. The Book of Magic was a unique item, and there was only one of it in the entire God's domain. In Shi Feng's previous life, it was exactly this item that had allowed a guild to earn a large sum of money, turning it from a third-rate guild into a second-rate guild. As for Blackbeard's recommendation letter, it would only be useful in White River City, so Shi Feng was still unable to use it right now. However, now that Shi Feng's reputation in Stonehammer Town had reached the level of worship, he could purchase a few bronze equipment, and even mysterious iron equipment, that would bind to the player's character upon purchase.
Moreover, the prices of these equipment items were very cheap, to the degree that even an average player at level 10 could afford them. Stonehammer Town could be called the best location for players to obtain mysterious iron equipment.
Hence, many players loved coming to this place to grind for reputation. After their reputation reached worship, they would be able to gear themselves fully with level 10 mysterious iron equipment.
Unfortunately, it was not easy to grind for reputation. It was almost impossible for anybody to fully equip themselves with level 10 mysterious iron reputation equipment. Moreover, a complete set of mysterious iron reputation equipment was still somewhat weaker than the bronze-ranked Silvermoon set equipment.
So, top-tier players all felt that it was below their dignity to equip it.
Although Shi Feng would not be equipping these items, he still had other uses for them. For example, using them to level up the Abyssal Blade. The Abyssal Blade needed to devour weapons in order to level up. According to his understanding, the better the quality of the weapon devoured, the higher the increase in attributes of the Abyssal Blade. The Abyssal Blade was like a cultivating weapon, hence the reason it was so much more powerful than those epic-ranked weapons. They were even capable of rivaling legendary weapons. If Shi Feng nurtured it properly, the Abyssal Blade's attributes could definitely surpass a legendary weapon. Sadly, too many items were required to carry out such a feat. Even if it was the guild leader of a second-rate guild, they would not be able to support such a heavy cost. There was also the risk of facing a huge backlash. It was why many players both loved and hated magic weapons. In consideration for the Abyssal Blade's attributes, instead of feeding it the original 1 piece of level 5 mysterious iron weapon, and 10 pieces of level 5 bronze weapon, Shi Feng decided to buy 11 pieces of level 5 mysterious iron weapon from the weapon shop. It was unknown how much of an increase in attributes such an action would yield. Following which, Shi Feng called out the leveling interface for the Abyssal Blade. He then fed all these weapons to the Abyssal Blade. Chapter 96. After choosing the weapons to devour and clicking level up for the Abyssal Blade, the Abyssal Blade suddenly let out a dragon's roar. Countless black flames started emerging from the blade of the sword. The black flames then transformed into a dragon's head, immediately biting at the weapons that had been chosen. The dragon devoured the weapons, bite by bite. In the blink of an eye, the black flame devoured all 11 mysterious iron weapons, and all of their essences flowed into the abyssal blade. The abyssal blade no longer looked like a fire poker, and it now gave off a faint cold feeling of sharpness. The blade's color and luster had also become more rustic, similar to a blade covered in dust for many years. When Shi Fang held the abyssal blade once again, the weapon felt slightly heavier than before. He felt a refreshing feeling when his hand wrapped around the sword's hilt. Shi Fang then waved the sword a few times. Wah! 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 The air was like paper, creating tearing sounds as he sliced it apart. The boss of the weapon shop was also a forging expert. When he saw this, his mouth opened wide in shock. He even nearly pulled out his goatee. The ordinary-looking weapon was actually so sharp that it could easily surpass a fine gold weapon. If it were utilized properly, it might even be able to break apart a bronze weapon with a single slash. Good sword. Shi Fang waved the abyssal blade a few more times. After leveling up the sword, Shi Fang felt that it had become much more suitable for him. He then checked the abyssal blade's attributes. Abyssal blade, magic weapon, one-handed sword. Attack power 39. All attributes plus 14. Attack speed plus 5. Ignore monsters level by 5 levels. Attacks have a 15% chance to cause 2 times damage, 10% chance to induce Doom Curse, reducing all stats by 40%, lasting 30 seconds. If wielder belongs to any swordsman job, all skill levels plus 2. Increase free ability points received by 2 points for every increase in level. Equipment level 5. Can be leveled up. Devour 10 level 10 bronze equipment and 1 level 10 mysterious iron equipment to level up to level 10. Can be evolved. Unknown. Additional skill 1, Phantom Kill. Instantly creates a doppelganger. You can control this doppelganger. Doppelganger will have 50% of original body's attributes and all skills. At the same time, doppelganger and the original body can be swapped. Duration of 35 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Additional skill 2, Abyssal Bind. Binds enemies and prevent movement, reducing defense by 100%. Duration of 3 seconds. Cooldown, 1 minute. Additional skill 3, 9 Dragon Slash. Instantly create 9 phantoms of the abyssal blade for the wielder to use. Each phantom sword is capable of dealing up to 30% damage. Duration of 24 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. The abyssal blade was personally created by Master Smith Ulysses using the Black Dragon King's fangs as material. It is one of 36 famed swords, and it is ranked 31st. However, this sword has been cursed by the Black Dragon King. Aside from being able to provide the wielder with immense strength, there will be a backlash every period. However, after being remodeled by Jack using a star crystal, the strength of the backlash has been greatly reduced. If the wielder is unable to suppress the backlash, the wielder will receive the curse of the Black Dragon King, permanently reducing all attributes by 50%. Unable to be dropped. Unable to be traded. The abyssal blade's attributes increased by quite a lot. Just its attack power alone could rival a level 5 mysterious iron two-handed weapon. With the basic attributes included, it would far exceed even a level 5 secret silver two-handed weapon. It was a one-handed weapon that had the destructive power of a two-handed weapon. Moreover, a one-handed sword was much lighter, and its speed was much faster. That meant the abyssal blade possessed both the destructive power of a two-handed weapon and at the same time, the lightness and speed of a one-handed weapon. This was the terrifying part of magic weapons, and only master smiths were capable of forging such weapons. With such a result, Shi Fang was looking forward to the abyssal blade's rise to level 10. Originally, Shi Fang intended to sell off the level 10 fine gold greatsword he had obtained from the Sun Temple. However, he dismissed that notion. If he were to let the abyssal blade devour this weapon, he wondered just how much of an increase the abyssal blade would have. However, it was but a thought of Shi Feng's. To obtain an overall positive increase, it would not be possible just depending on a single weapon.
Shi Feng would, at the very least, need to pair it up with 10 level 10 secret silver weapons. Currently, even mysterious iron weapons were as rare as a phoenix's feather, not to mention priceless secret silver weapons. After sheathing the abyssal blade, Shi Feng took out a return scroll and started chanting, returning to Redleaf Town.
If he were to run back instead, he would, with a 100% chance, be late.
If he were to make the snow goddess wait for him, he dared not to think of the consequences.
Redleaf Town, Trade Area.
After Shi Feng transformed back to his original appearance, he made some minor adjustments to the appearance of the Silvermoon set equipment.
It now looked more like an assembled set of bronze equipment.
If Shi Feng were to appear in front of Gentle Snow with his original appearance, she would definitely find something fishy about it.
At that time, Shi Feng would not find it easy to explain himself. "Brother Feng, we're over here." Blackie stood up and shouted as he saw Shi Feng walking over. The others, as well, stood up to welcome Shi Feng when they saw him approaching, sending gazes of appreciation at him. If Shi Feng had not let Blackie carry them, they most likely would not have been able to reach level 5 so quickly, and very likely, they would still be struggling at the bottom of the ranks. Currently, most of the veteran players in God's domain were level 4, and a minority had reached level 5. However, there was nothing great about the equipment they were using.
If veteran players were lucky, they might possess 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment that had good attributes.
Only those expert players would possess 6 or 7 pieces of bronze equipment. On the other hand, every one of them now possessed 7 or 8 pieces of bronze equipment. Originally, this reason alone already caused them to be extremely grateful towards Shi Feng.
They all decided to continue following Shi Feng. They never thought that Blackie would actually be willing to sign a contract with them, allowing them to join Zero Wing Workshop and become one of its official members. They could also enjoy a monthly salary of 4,000 credits. They were not just fools playing a game. They knew the treatment an official member received in other workshops. The treatment for official members of top-ranking workshops in the city only received a monthly salary of 3,000 credits. Even so, many veteran players would still try to worm themselves into these workshops in whichever way they could. Meanwhile, they were just a bunch of fresh noobs, yet, they actually had a monthly salary of 4,000 credits. This situation was just like a dream to them. Although they requested to lower the treatment they received, Blackie had firmly rejected all of them. He had said that Shi Feng had personally declared it as such, and no changes were permitted. Helpless, they could only sign the contract, becoming official members of Zero Wing Workshop. Although they looked well off now, deep in their hearts, they were very clear about their own strengths. It was practically impossible for them to get invited to a workshop. It would be a good thing if they could even become outer members, not to mention official members. Shi Feng swept a glance at everyone's equipment. Based on his many years of experience, he could roughly estimate an equipment's attributes. The basic attributes of the equipment his party members were wearing had definitely exceeded the elite members of many small guilds. However, it was still not enough. Let's make a trip to the warehouse first. Everyone was confused. What were they going to do at the warehouse? However, they did not question Shi Feng's decision, only following him. Arriving at the bank, Shi Feng retrieved all the equipment that could be used by his party members. He obtained all of the equipment from the treasure chests he opened in the Moonlight Forest. Every piece of the equipment had extremely good attributes. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the equipment. They had ceaselessly grinded monsters and had even killed quite a few elites. Yet, all of their gains combined could not even rival the equipment Shi Feng had obtained by himself. The quality was, of course, much higher.
It was all level 5 bronze equipment, surpassing the level 2 or level 3 equipment they obtained by leaps and bounds. Brother Feng, how many elite monsters did you actually kill? Blackie's heart was filled with shock.
However, he did not remain courteous as he swapped all his equipment that could be swapped. After doing so, the set of equipment on his person was just slightly weaker than a level 5 bronze set equipment. However, the level 5 mysterious iron staff he wielded easily made up for this gap.
The other party members also fully swapped out their equipment. Their basic attributes right now far surpassed those of the elite members of large guilds. Every one of them had exchanged their shotguns for cannons. Even if they were to enter a 20-man dungeon right now, they would still be full of confidence.
Shi Feng examined through everyone's attributes once, nodding his head in satisfaction as he said, "Let's go."
Chapter 97. Dark Moon Valley, Dark Moon Graveyard.
Countless tombstones stood around a dilapidated chapel.
In the midst of night, one could hear wails of agony coming out from the tombstones. Meanwhile, kobold assassins roamed the dark and hidden locations around the broken-down chapel.
This place was the most famous location of Dark Moon Valley. Due to this place being the closest and the first 20-man team dungeon activated near Redleaf Town, it held high importance to the many guilds stationed in Redleaf Town. Compared to the previous 6-man party dungeon, the various guilds were paying the most attention to this team dungeon. That was because team dungeons and party dungeons were different. Not only was the difficulty for team dungeons higher, but the equipment that dropped from them was also better.
Moreover, only by clearing a team dungeon would a guild be able to prove their strength.
Aside from that, there was a gigantic glory list beside the teleportation gate of every team dungeon.
On it, the names of the team and players who obtained the first clear for the dungeon would be listed for latecomers to admire. Of course, aside from the first clear, the record for the fastest to clear the dungeon would also be recorded, with the reserved record set at 3 hours. As long as a team surpassed the record time, their names would be recorded. However, this record was not permanent, but only temporary. As long as another team could obtain an even shorter record time, they would replace the current holders of the record. Currently, players filled all of the Dark Moon Graveyard. Aside from the various large guilds from Redleaf Town, there were plenty of temporary groups attempting to challenge this team dungeon. Wow! It's just as expected of the competition for the first clear of the team dungeon. The equipment on these guys is just too gorgeous. Our temporary group has no chance of competing against them at all.
That's only natural. Why don't you look at just how many times these guilds have cleared the level 3 to level 4 party dungeons?
Even the team belonging to the weakest guild here would have 7 to 8 pieces of bronze equipment on each party member. Look at Martial Union over there. All of their members are wearing bronze equipment.
Their leader, Iron Sword Lion, is wearing the Wolf Fang set equipment that can only be obtained from the level 4 dungeon, Black Wolf's Den.
Iron Sword Lion's equipment could be considered quite good amongst the unrated guilds. However, look over there at the third-rate guild, Heaven's Crowns. The equipment on their elite team's vice leader, Passenger of Wind, is the Spirit Wind set equipment obtained from the level 4 advanced dungeon, Ghost Fortress. The players of temporary teams gazed at the equipment of the guild teams in envy. They spoke about the items as if enumerating their own family's valuables, and the more they spoke, the more drool leaked out from the corner of their mouths. Only the elite parties of guilds could clear those high-difficulty party dungeons. Unaffiliated individuals like themselves could only look on with envy. Just as everyone was sighing in admiration at the equipment of these elite teams, Stabbing Heart of Assassins Alliance led a group of players over. The equipment of the group was extremely unified. All 20 players wore the same level 4 bronze equipment. Amongst them, the 2 silver daggers hung around Stabbing Heart's waist looked extraordinarily radiant. Crap, it can't be, right? Those are Gemini's thorns that only drop from the final boss of the hard mode of Ghost Fortress. An assassin who was a dagger fanatic cried out in shock.
Suddenly, the team leaders and upper echelons of the other guilds all cast sidelong glances over to Stabbing Heart. This design and color were exactly the same as the information displayed on the official announcement. As expected of a second-rate guild, the Assassins' Alliance's strength cannot be taken lightly. They managed to clear the hard mode of Ghost Fortress without anyone noticing.
Meanwhile, until now, we have merely killed off the first boss of hard mode. Passenger of Wind sighed with regret. Humph. So what if they manage to clear the hard mode? We will still start from the same starting point from now on. The difficulty of a team dungeon is not something a party dungeon can compare to. Clearing it depends more on the commands given. Iron Sword Lion wrinkled his brows, snorting in disdain. He believed that his own techniques were no weaker than Stabbing Heart's.
If he had not been ambushed by that Yi Feng, causing him to lose a level, the party he led might have been able to clear the hard mode of Ghost Fortress. Interesting, when Shadow's leader, Zhang Luowei, heard the discussions of the other guilds, a faint smile appeared on his face.
He was immensely arrogant, as if he did not place importance on any of these players.
The various guilds present were unwilling to comply with each other. After all, God's domain had only recently begun. Nobody would know what the future would bring. The Assassins' Alliance was only this powerful due to their strong initial foundation. However, the first clear for the Dark Moon Graveyard could not be obtained just by relying on a strong foundation.
At best, the Assassins' Alliance would only have a minor advantage over the other guilds.
The first clear of this team dungeon this time around was considered a shuffling of power in Red Leaf Town.
Whoever obtained the first clear would increase their prestige in Red Leaf Town, improving their guild's development. It would have a great effect on attracting new players to join their guilds. Everyone looked at the time. There was still over 20 minutes before the opening of Dark Moon Graveyard.
They all stood by a side, patiently waiting. "Sister Snow, this place is really lively."
Xuanhuan giggled, pulling on Gentle Snow's delicate arm as she took a look at her surroundings. Gentle Snow nodded. She looked around with an indifferent face, her expression as cold as ice. She did not pay any attention to the guilds present. Instead, she was looking for a certain someone. Although Gentle Snow and her group kept a low profile when they arrived at the Dark Moon Graveyard, everyone's sights still unconsciously turned towards the group, including the upper echelons of the various guilds. They still possessed the chance to compete in the case of second-rate guilds. However, it was but a fleeting dream for them to compete against a first-rate guild. The main reason being the gap between a first-rate guild and a second-rate guild was just too wide. Not only was there a difference in the number of players in the guild, but there was also the difference of the quality of players and fundings. Just by standing in this place, Gentle Snow caused a great pressure to loom over the upper echelons of the many guilds present. As for the cause for this pressure, aside from the disparity between their guilds, the disparity between personal strength was also one of the causes. As long as one played virtual reality games, they would certainly know of the Snow Goddess. However, this name was not praise for Gentle Snow's stunning complexion, but for her frightening strength. As expected of the Snow Goddess, the equipment on her body is likely the most top-notch equipment available to players at this stage of the game. Stabbing Heart inwardly admired the silver-red battle armor that Gentle Snow wore. This was the flame light set equipment that could only be obtained from the level 5 advanced dungeon, Lava Cavern. The Assassin's Alliance was never able to clear this dungeon. Moreover, this flame light set was a mysterious iron set equipment that would only drop from the hard mode of the dungeon. The set equipment was much better than any other equipment, not to mention the crimson-colored Flame Spirit Greatsword in Gentle Snow's hands. That was a level 5 secret silver two-handed sword. The weapon itself could easily overwhelm his pair of mysterious iron-ranked Gemini's thorns. The pressure this set of equipment gave off to the other experts present was enormous. In addition to Zhao Yueru and Xiao Yuer's mysterious iron equipment, Gentle Snow's group practically flattened everyone else at the Dark Moon Graveyard.
How are these experts supposed to compete against Gentle Snow's group now? Why isn't he here yet? After taking a look around, a faint layer of frost appeared on Gentle Snow's face as she was unable to discover Shi Feng's figure anywhere.
Ha ha ha!
Snow. That guy must have known that he would just humiliate himself, so he didn't dare show up. Why don't we just call a few more members over? Zhao Yueru stuck out her impressive twin peaks, laughing delightfully. Gentle Snow gave Zhao Yueru's words some thought. The first clear for the Dark Moon Graveyard was extremely important.
If Shi Feng really was not coming, then she should be making some preparations ahead of time.
Just as Gentle Snow was prepared to contact her subordinates, Shi Feng and his party ran over.
Sorry, I've made you all wait.
Shi Feng scratched his head, apologizing.
Although he hurried over, the distance was just too far. Moreover, they had met a level 5 extremely rare elite on the way here, so they had wasted some time. Chapter 98.
After not meeting for just more than a day, Shi Feng discovered that Gentle Snow and the others of her group had changed their equipment.
All of them were wearing gorgeous equipment. The level 5 flame light set equipment all of them were wearing was the best team equipment currently available. A, B. With this equipment, as long as the team leader commanded properly, they would definitely conquer the normal mode of Dark Moon Valley after familiarizing themselves with the dungeon. Regarding the Dark Moon Graveyard, even if Shi Feng now possessed a full suit of Silver Moon set equipment, he still had quite a lot of requirements. For instance, the advanced whetstone recipe. This was the strengthened version of the whetstone. The recipe for this item could only be obtained from team dungeons. Moreover, only bosses of the dungeon would have a chance of dropping it. You still remembered to come. That's enough. Since you're already here, leave your party, and we'll reform the group. Zhao Yueru originally wanted to taunt Shi Feng, but Gentle Snow stopped her a step earlier. Gentle Snow was still slightly angry from before, but after sweeping a glance at Shi Feng, she shockingly discovered that Shi Feng had reached level 6. Currently, the level 6 players in all of Red Leaf Town were top-tier players. Previously, when she met Shi Feng, his level was nothing special. It was just below average. Now that he was able to catch up to such a degree, one could see that Shi Feng's leveling speed was extremely fast. As for Blackie and the others standing behind Shi Feng, all of them were level 5. They were also fully geared with bronze equipment, and such a standard was relatively good amongst temporary teams. Shi Feng's party then disbanded, all of them joining Gentle Snow's team. All of the surrounding guilds and players saw Shi Feng join Gentle Snow's team. Judging from the equipment of Shi Feng's party, it was obvious that Shi Feng and the others were not members of Ouroboros. However, it was extremely odd that they were still able to join Gentle Snow's team and enter the dungeon together. The equipment worn by Shi Feng's party did not seem very high-leveled. They wore only scattered pieces of bronze equipment, not that different from the equipment of a temporary team. This was the important struggle for the first clear of a team dungeon. Was Gentle Snow so confident in being able to easily obtain it that she'd invite a group of people like this? Only Stabbing Heart knew of Shi Feng's strength. Now that both powerhouses had joined, the competition for the first clear of the Dark Moon Graveyard had just become much harder. "Brother Zhang, that's the brat that set up our men," Flaming Tiger hatefully commented when he saw Shi Feng. "So, it is him?" Zhang Luowei raised his brows. He could not help but pay more attention to Shi Feng. He then said in a deep tone, "Since he has some connection with the snow goddess, try not to stir up trouble with them in the future. I don't wish for us to go against a first-rate guild right now." Being able to wipe out Flaming Tiger's group, and having a connection with the snow goddess, this person was not that simple. He still needed to do some investigations of this person. If this person had just joined the snow goddess by chance, he would definitely make this person pay for his actions. "Yes, I understand, Brother Zhang." Flaming Tiger glared at Shi Feng, only gritting his teeth as he answered.
However, it was a different situation on the side of Martial Union. Every member of Martial Union could not help but wish they could get rid of Shi Feng right that instant.
It was especially true for Ironsword Lion.
Previously, he put out the word that he would kill Shi Feng back to level 0. Now that he saw Shi Feng had already reached level 6, one level higher than Ironsword Lion himself, he felt extremely humiliated.
What is that group of assassins doing?
They actually allowed him to wash away his red name, and even rise to level 6. Just the fact that Shi Feng was standing in this place, unscathed, caused the light on Ironsword Lion's face to fade. His face turned crimson from anger, saying, "Immediately contact the party of assassins." What exactly is going on here?
Boss, what's up? One of the assassins standing guard in front of the hotel asked.
What's up? Ironsword Lion nearly suffocated from anger when he heard those words. He bellowed, "I told you all to pay attention to Yi Feng. Yet, what have you all been doing?"
Boss, we've constantly been keeping an eye out for him.
However, Yi Feng has not set foot outside the hotel.
I'm guessing that he must be afraid, the assassin said, puzzled.
You've constantly been keeping an eye out for him? Then you tell me, who is this person that I am looking at?
Ironsword Lion sent a screenshot, asking coldly. Impossible. We've really been constantly keeping an eye out for Yi Feng, and he never came out.
The assassin, immediately dumbfounded, looked at the screenshot. You're a bunch of rubbish that can't even keep watch over a single person. Get out of Martial Union immediately.
I don't wish to see you any longer. Rage completely flooded Ironsword Lion's mind.
Shortly after, he turned to glare at Shi Feng, saying to his subordinate, "Call some men over, as many as you can. After they're done with the dungeon, I want him dead immediately." Boss Ironsword, this wouldn't be a good move, right?
No matter how you put it, he still has some connection with the snow goddess.
If we create a bad relationship with Ouroboros, it would be detrimental to the development of our guild, a druid said. Out in the streets, we live by depending on our reputation. Now that someone has stomped our reputation to the ground, who cares about anything else? Ironsword Lion said in disdain. So what if she's the snow goddess?
She still hasn't met this daddy right here. I don't believe that a stupid skank like her could do much to me.
If she knows how to be tactful, I can still give her some face. If not, then I'll kill her back to level 0 as well.
Boss is right.
God's domain just has slightly more players. How prestigious was it during those years that we swept across Martial World?
Now, we can also sweep across God's domain just like before.
What should we be afraid of? The players that had constantly followed Ironsword Lion all voiced out their agreements, all of them releasing the aura of a mad dog from their bodies. In their opinion, one had to be fierce when playing virtual reality games. Compared to wuxia games, God's domain merely had more players. Moreover, they had to take into consideration so many problems every single day. What good was worrying about each and every little thing? Won't everything be solved if they just killed these first-rate guilds into submission? They had only depended on being fierce to succeed in the previous wuxia game they played, and it would be the same in God's domain. Only the druid, who had only recently joined, helplessly shook his head. These people were insane. Shi Feng did not notice the movements of Martial Union. He only discussed the matter of cooperation with Gentle Snow. The items dropped from the dungeon will be distributed according to job requirements. If both sides require the same equipment, then there should be no problem if we just roll for it, right? We don't have any problems with the distribution of equipment. However, I want priority over the recipes and materials for lifestyle jobs. Shi Feng's goal in coming here was the advanced whetstone recipe, while equipment didn't really matter to him. Don't forget that we are the ones who will be carrying you through the dungeon. Moreover, do you know how valuable the recipes for lifestyle jobs are? After hearing Shi Feng's words, Zhao Yueru stamped her feet in anger, bellowing like a fierce tigress. The other members of Gentle Snow's team were also feeling aggrieved. Shi Feng and his party were just a group of wild players. 1. They were already extremely benevolent by rolling to distribute the equipment. Despite that fact, Shi Feng was still trying to take advantage of them.
Brother Feng, your request is going slightly overboard.
In any case, our equipment is slightly weaker than theirs, and even just clearing the dungeon would be a problem for us.
So why don't you change your requirements?
Blackie advised. Although their equipment was very good, compared to the said equipment of these people, they were clearly still a step behind.
Being able to roll for equipment was already a good condition.
Going further to compete over recipes for lifestyle jobs. Nobody would be willing to concede to such a request. To put it bluntly, even without them joining, Gentle Snow's team could similarly clear the Dark Moon Graveyard.
Shi Feng shook his head. He would not mind if it were any other recipes.
However, he would not concede even a single step for the advanced whetstone recipe. He also could not reveal any specifics to avoid attracting the suspicion of others.
After all, before a team dungeon was conquered, the official website would not reveal any information about its drops. 20-man dungeons would only refresh once every 3 days.
There were only that many team dungeons nearby, and every one of them was extremely precious. The earlier Shi Feng obtained the advanced whetstone recipe, the earlier he would obtain an advantage over the other players. To a workshop like theirs that lived on the edge, they had even more reasons not to concede. Gentle Snow, who had an ice-cold expression, also opened up her mouth this time around, saying, "Recipes for lifestyle jobs are extremely important to our guild.
Your request, I cannot agree to it. 1. Wild players. Players that are unaffiliated to any guilds.
From the last chapter, I honestly had the impression that only Gentle Snow possessed this set equipment. As for team equipment, that's what the author wrote.
I refuse to capitalize it though. Sooner or later, he's gonna bring some shit like guild equipment or party equipment.
Lol.
Chapter 99.
Gentle Snow's single sentence determined the final verdict, not allowing anybody to refuse. After having worked with Black Flame, Gentle Snow discovered the importance of lifestyle jobs.
Although their influence towards God's domain was small right now, who could guarantee that it would remain so in the future?
Hence, she would not let even a single recipe that dropped from the dungeon slip by.
With Gentle Snow's approval, the confidence of the members of Ouroboros grew. Every one of them looked towards the foolish-looking Shi Feng. Now that our leader has refused, let's see how you are going to continue acting arrogant. If you have the ability, then form your own team to enter the Dark Moon Graveyard. We will have an easier time that way as well. Shi Feng slightly wrinkled his brows. He did not think that Gentle Snow would be so resolute. He wondered what had happened to Gentle Snow to trigger a nerve in her. She was completely different from when they first met.
At that time, there was still room for discussion. However, Shi Feng did not have a clue that the person who triggered Gentle Snow was exactly himself. How about this, then?
We'll hold a party auction for the lifestyle recipes that drop, Shi Feng said.
Without having any better options, he could only take a step back and make some compromises. Hearing Shi Feng, Zhao Yueru covered her delicate mouth as she revealed a shallow smile. Yi Feng, stop dreaming.
Team dungeons only reset once every 3 days.
The recipes obtained from inside are extremely important to a guild's development. How could we auction them amongst the party? If you insist on doing so, then we will just call in a few more of our elite members. That way, those enter the Dark Moon Graveyard will all be our members, and we won't need to share anything with you. Zhao Yuru's tone turned chilling. Zhao Yueru had already made her words extremely clear. If you are going to stay, then forget about the recipes.
Otherwise, pack up and leave.
We won't be obstructing you on your way.
Meanwhile, Gentle Snow showed no signs of hindering Zhao Yueru. Her actions meant that she, too, agreed with Zhao Yuru's viewpoint. Miss Zhao, please don't get angry.
Brother Feng doesn't know how important the recipes are to you all. I apologize. Blackie could no longer stand to watch this scene continue to unfold.
Any more of this, and the final result would definitely be a separation. They managed to obtain the favor of the snow goddess after much difficulty.
Hence, they could not simply just let go of this chance to further advance their workshop. Blackie continuously hinted Shi Feng not to act rashly and to properly grab a hold of this chance. Shi Feng could feel Gentle Snow's resolute behavior. Such an attitude gave him a headache.
However, it would not be easy for him to find another team to enter the Dark Moon Graveyard with. It was a team dungeon, after all. A certain standard of equipment, trust, and cooperation was required to successfully clear it. Moreover, players that were abruptly recruited might not necessarily be reliable. They might even bring adverse effects to the team. Alright then, let's go with your arrangements. It was clearly not wise for him to enter a deadlock with Gentle Snow right now. Shi Feng had no choice but to just give up this chance. His only choice was to look for new, reliable members after he finished the dungeon. He would then bring them to dive into other team dungeons. Seeing Shi Feng agree, Blackie let loose a breath of relief. On the other hand, Zhao Yueru was slightly pouting. She inwardly felt unfortunate that she was not able to chase Shi Feng away. Gentle Snow did not pay attention to Zhao Yueru's irritation. The time for the dungeon's opening already arrived. The other guild teams were all entering the dungeon, one after another. Hence, Gentle Snow said in the team chat, "Let's go in then." Before entering the dungeon, Gentle Snow had set the dungeon's difficulty at normal. That way, after entering the teleportation gate, everyone would be sent to the normal mode of the Dark Moon Graveyard. Team dungeons were similar to party dungeons, in which they had 3 different difficulties: normal, hard, and hell. However, guilds that were not familiar with the dungeon would usually start off by obtaining and understanding information from the normal mode of the dungeon. They would then use the information obtained to prepare for hard mode and hell mode. Right now, every guild was competing for the first clear of the Dark Moon Graveyard. They wanted to use this chance to increase their influence towards the players in Red Leaf Town. So, naturally, they would not start off by challenging a higher difficulty. The team entered the teleportation gate, one after another. They all turned into a streak of white light as they entered the Dark Moon Graveyard. Team dungeons were unlike party dungeons. The map inside a team dungeon was extremely large. They were practically the same size as a small town, with some being the same size as a city with a population in the millions. The Dark Moon Graveyard was the first team dungeon available near Red Leaf Town, so the map of the dungeon was relatively small. Unlike the team dungeons in other virtual reality games, the main goal when entering any team dungeons in God's domain was to find the exit. As long as players could find the exit and leave the dungeon, then they would have cleared the dungeon. After leaving the dungeon, they would also receive the corresponding dungeon rewards. Dark Moon Graveyard was different precisely because of this reason. Taking into consideration that this was the first time players of God's domain came into contact with team dungeons, the Dark Moon Graveyard's difficulty was lower than other team dungeons. Players only needed to consider one key point when inside the dungeon: survive. As long as they could survive and leave through the exit, they would clear the dungeon. Immediately after everyone entered the Dark Moon Graveyard, a chilling wind ambushed them, causing their entire bodies to shiver. It was past dusk in this place, and a red moon hung above the sky, shining down on the earth. Gravestones littered the wasteland, and the gigantic stones formed one gigantic maze. A strange atmosphere filled the place, coupled with countless wails of anguish. I'll divide up our responsibilities first, so when the time comes, just make sure you do your own part. Gentle Snow was not even the slightest bit shocked by the strange atmosphere. Instead, the corners of her lips curved upwards, forming an excited smile. Although they wasted several minutes, they properly determined each team member's responsibilities.
That way, whenever anything unexpected occurred, everyone could react with the quickest time possible. The team had a total of 4 healers, with 2 being clerics, 1 oracle, and 1 druid.
There were 2 MTs in the team. One of them was a shield warrior, the other, a guardian knight.
Meanwhile, Shi Feng was arranged into the dagger party.
The party's main goal was to combat at the front lines. On the other hand, Lonely Snow was arranged into the protection party.
Their main goal was to protect the team's lifeline, the healers.
Alright, Scout Party, search for a path. We will follow behind at a slower pace. Once Gentle Snow was satisfied with the team's formation, she arranged for 2 assassins to scout ahead. After entering the wasteland maze, the 2 assassins immediately reported the situation they discovered. Gentle Snow responded immediately, allowing her team to advance towards the best possible route and easily avoid the traps set up by the Kobold assassins and Kobold warriors. Kobold Assassin, Common Rank. Level 5. HP 1600–1600. Kobold Warrior, Elite Rank. Level 5. HP 3500–3500. If they triggered the trap here, they would have to go up against more than 30 Kobold Assassins and 7 or 8 elite Kobold Warriors. Such a situation would definitely cause major losses to the team. Thanks to Gentle Snow's quick decisions, the team inched closer and closer towards the maze's exit. On the way, they only needed to kill a small amount of kobolds. Even Shi Feng was slightly shocked by Gentle Snow's leadership. It was as if all matters within the Dark Moon Graveyard were within the palms of her hands. Zhao Yueru walked up to Shi Feng's side, proudly saying, "What do you think? You should see how far apart your strengths are now, right?" Shi Feng remained silent. He did not pay much heed to Zhao Yueru, his hand only tightening its grip on his treasured sword hanging on his waist. "Humph. Speechless now, are you?" Zhao Yueru thought Shi Feng was tacitly agreeing, her heart feeling a wave of pleasure. However, not long after Zhao Yueru felt pleased with herself, 2 blood-curdling screams came through the team's chat. "Scout Party, what happened?" Gentle Snow hurriedly asked. "System, player White Cry has died. System, player Wind Shadow has died." What happened? When Zhao Yueru saw that the 2 players who died were both from the Scout Party, her heart filled with questions. However, nobody answered Zhao Yueru. Due to the settings of God's domain, players were unable to initiate communication after death. Everyone immediately tensed up. They watched their surroundings vigilantly. The mysterious deaths of the 2 players informed the members of Ouroboros of one thing. Both players who died had very good techniques. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become elite members of Ouroboros. Their sudden deaths and the lack of even the slightest information could only mean one thing: this place had become extremely dangerous. Chapter 100. Everyone, pay attention to your surroundings. Healers, stand in the middle. Protection Party, guard the healers. MTs, prepare to activate your life-saving skills at any time. Dagger Party, prepare for battle. Gentle Snow was not frightened by the situation. She immediately gave out commands, staying combat ready. Haughtiness invites disaster. Humility receives benefit. This sentence just happened to be applicable to the members of Ouroboros. It was especially true for the arrogant Zhao Yueru. Problems were bound to occur when one became complacent. Only, the problems, this time, arrived somewhat too quickly. Zhao Yueru, who was still relaxed, suddenly tightened her grip on her crystal staff. She was no longer acting cheerful or witty, her expression now turned solemn. She observed her surroundings for every little detail, revealing the unquestionable quality of an expert. The other members of Ouroboros also no longer dared be careless. Although they were confident in their equipment, even possessing the confidence to overcome the Dark Moon Graveyard, this confidence still gradually faded after the 2 players were instantly killed. They could not help but become cautious and timid.
As for Shi Feng's party, they were even more nervous.
Inside their hearts, they were still considering themselves to be a bunch of noobs. Meanwhile, the elite members of Ouroboros before them were experts.
Their techniques surpassed them by leaps and bounds. However, such experts that wore top-tier set equipment still died an unfathomable death. This dark moon graveyard was just too horrifying. Seeing everyone in such a panic, Shi Feng remained incomparably calm. As for what actually happened, nobody had a better understanding of it than him, or rather, he long since predicted such a situation.
Since Dark Moon Graveyard had a lower difficulty, depending on equipment and some experts, it was easy enough that it could be relaxingly cleared.
However, in Shi Feng's previous life, an unknown number of guilds fell to the dungeon over and over, to the degree of cursing someone's mother. Based on the strength of Gentle Snow's team, they would still be able to clear the dungeon, even after being team-wiped over a dozen times.
Only, the price to pay for such an action was very high.
Something's coming.
MTs, pay attention, Shi Feng warned. He squinted his eyes, looking towards the fog that floated nearer. Everyone abruptly tensed, looking over.
What's that? The shield warrior discovered a blurry figure inside the mist. The figure was hidden inside the murky fog, preventing anybody from getting a clear look at it. The team only knew that the thing was gradually wobbling closer, step after step, crawling as slow as a snail. As the distance between the two sides shortened, the wails of anguish became louder, causing all those present to have goosebumps.
Just when the figure was about to leave the fog. MTs, activate your life-saving skills. Shi Feng yelled.
However, the shield warrior paid no attention to Shi Feng's words.
He had always looked down upon Shi Feng in his heart.
The last time they met, Shi Feng was just a noob who got lucky.
Shi Feng was only able to attract their leader's attention because he familiarized himself with God's domain ahead of time. Although Shi Feng was currently reached level 6, he had definitely depended on his familiarity with the quests and monsters in order to level up so quickly. He did not truly possess strength. Even if Shi Feng's skills were good, the number of experts Ouroboros had recruited over the years from other virtual reality games exceeded 5,000. They were not lacking people such as Shi Feng at all. In other words, within Ouroboros, there were plenty of players that were much better than Shi Feng. Although the shield warrior did not pay attention to Shi Feng's words, the guardian knight, Kola, had always trusted in Shi Feng. He had, at the first instance, activated protection blessing on himself. Just as the figure within the fog was about to reveal itself, two black rays of light shot out from the fog, reaching the MTs on the front lines in the blink of an eye. These two rays of light were as swift as bullets. The bulky MTs had no way of dodging them. At that moment, Gentle Snow only shouted, "MTs, use your life-saving skills." Unfortunately, Gentle Snow was still one step behind. One of the black rays immediately pierced the shield warrior's body, a damage of -1,600 appearing above his head. He was killed instantly. The shield warrior's eyes affixed to his chest where the black ray penetrated, unwillingly passing on. Meanwhile, after activating Protection Blessing, the damage Kola received reduced by 50%. In addition to the secret silver-ranked sky armor that he received from Shi Feng, Kola only received slightly more than -500 damage, losing slightly more than half of his HP. Everyone was dumbfounded after seeing this. A level 5 MT wearing bronze set equipment died, just like that. Meanwhile, more figures started appearing out of the fog. When Gentle Snow recalled the terrifying black rays from before, she immediately commanded, "Healers, heal. Everyone retreat. Guardian Knight, cover everyone else's retreat. Anybody with a defense skill, pay attention and protect the Guardian Knight." Hearing Gentle Snow's commands, Kola hesitated slightly. He turned to look at Shi Feng, intending to wait for Shi Feng's command. "Retreat then. Pay attention to your positioning and maintain a straight line with the people behind." Shi Feng nodded his head.
After receiving Shi Feng's orders, Kola immediately took action. Seeing such a scene, Gentle Snow felt slightly upset in her heart.
However, she did not voice it. On the other hand, Zhao Yueru was not as willing.
A noob like you, instead of listening to Snow's commands, you actually listened to that lucky dog shit's words. Was he trying to imply that the Snow Goddess' strength and commands weren't as reliable as Shi Feng's? However, just as Zhao Yueru was about to open her mouth, she immediately snapped it closed. That was because, while Kola was retreating, he was actually able to simultaneously use his shield to block the black rays that fired towards the other players. He was even able to dodge the attacks of the black rays while, at the same time, retreating in an orderly manner. Such a feat was absolutely impossible for a fresh noob to accomplish. His skills were even better than their own shield warriors by a thread. With 4 healers healing him, Kola was able to maintain his HP above the safety line. During the occasional desperate moments, Shi Feng would use parry to help Kola block the black rays, allowing Kola to retain his life. Such scenes caused the members of Ouroboros, who had been previously dissatisfied with Shi Feng, to have a change of heart.
They questioned whether they were able to carry out such actions. Moreover, Shi Feng rescued Kola multiple times now, proving that it was not just a coincidence, but skill. As long as Kola did not die, the remaining team members would remain safe. It could be said that Shi Feng was holding onto the lives of the entire team. It would seem that I have still been underestimating him. Gentle Snow started viewing Shi Feng in a different light. Although she, too, helped Kola block some attacks, her actions were not as natural and pleasant as Shi Feng's. He was capable of blocking the attacks while not hindering Kola's movements. After everyone retreated some distance, they were finally able to clearly see the figures within the fog. They had gigantic bodies with the height of 2 people. Their arms were both equipped with black, metallic claws. When they attacked, their claws were like swords shooting forth and sheathing quickly after, all within a blink of an eye. Kobold Zombie, Special Elite. Level 6. HP 5000. Just a single kobold zombie was headache to them. However, there were a total of 6 kobold zombies that appeared from the fog. Such numbers practically demanded their lives. To make matters worse, a group of kobold warriors also appeared in their path of retreat. Everyone finally understood the difficulty of a team dungeon. Its difficulty was practically over 10 times that of a party dungeon. We're finished. Zhao Yueru felt despair in her heart when she saw the number of elites and special elites. How are we supposed to fight this many elites and special elites? Moreover, they have both ranged and meleeed to cooperate with each other. The other team members similarly agreed with Zhao Yueru's opinion. Is there no way for us to pass through? Gentle Snow creased her brows. She was unwilling to just leave the dungeon like this. At that moment, Shi Feng opened his mouth, saying, "If we utilize the terrain properly and cooperate well with each other, it is not entirely impossible." The members of Ouroboros felt displeasure in their hearts when they heard Shi Feng. He was wholly mocking the inability of Gentle Snow's commands. Easier said than done. Who would know how to deal with this many elites and special elites? Go ahead, if you can, Zhao Yueru sneered, looking at Shi Feng with disdain.